In the capitalist, gloomy depths beyond our solar system, where sunlight is merely a memory, drifts a machine created by humans. Voyager 2, launched in 1977, was not intended to return. Its mission was solely for observation. He crossed planets, left the heliosphere, and entered interstellar space, becoming humanity's farthest messenger into the void. While the world continued to move forward, Voyager 2 kept listening, and last month it finally responded, not with technical updates, nor with data on radiation or solar activity, but with something unexpected, a broadcast so structured, purposeful, and strange that experts were left dumbfounded. At first, the message seemed like background noise, but it concealed a repeating impulse, precise, rhythmic, unnatural. Scientists decoded it, believing it to be interference. However, what they discovered was frightening, a complex, intelligent, and utterly alien pattern. And when they traced the event to its source, they realized something was moving alongside Voyager 2, not drifting or rotating, but tracking. At that moment, the old spacecraft became more than just a machine. It became a mirror, reflecting the truth we had long ignored. The instruments of Voyager 2, though outdated by modern standards, are still remarkably sensitive. They are designed to register the subtlest changes in plasma waves, magnetic fields, and cosmic radiation. However, in a recent dataset obtained from the Deep Space Communication Network, there was a low-frequency spike repeating every 11.2 seconds. This is not a cosmic background, it was a clock face. The engineers initially dismissed it as a software glitch caused by deep space interference. However, when they analyzed older telemetry logs, they discovered that the same impulse had occurred weeks earlier and had been completely missed. Now, with AI-based filtering tools, the data began to paint a troubling picture. The pulse was not just repeating, it was increasing in strength and did not originate from the probe. Moreover, the pulse seemed to carry a spectral imprint, a kind of fingerprint, if you will, an inverse resonance of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, but in a distorted form. Some called it a cosmic anomaly, others believed it was deliberate interference, but in any case, the silence of deep space was broken, not by noise, but by something that could speak mathematically. During triangulation and frequency delay analysis, the Mission Control Center determined that the source of the impulse was not stationary. In fact, it was moving along a vector parallel to the trajectory of Voyager 2, almost as if it were chasing the spacecraft. But this object did not obey the known laws of orbital mechanics. It accelerated and decelerated in short bursts, completely ignoring the gravitational influence of any nearby masses. One of the analysts tried to model its path using Newtonian physics, but each model failed. The object was not just moving. It was adjusting its trajectory, modifying its speed in response to the faint signals from Voyager. It did not transmit a signal towards us, but reflected it, returning a modified version of Voyager's data back into the void, like a cosmic echo chamber. Theories exploded in closed communication channels. Was it a malfunctioning satellite from a forgotten mission, a relic of an alien civilization, or a disguised surveillance system? Whatever it was, it had been silent for decades, until now. The Voyager signal could be the trigger. The situation became even stranger when linguists and signal theorists got involved. The anomalous transmission contained binary segments that did not belong to the Voyager 2 commands. When visualized using pattern recognition tools, these segments formed symmetrical shapes, spirals, fractals, and geometric alignments that remarkably resembled ancient symbols found on Earth, from Sumerian cuneiform to the drawings on the Nazca Plateau. These were not just signals, but glyphs encoded in waveforms. The deeper the scientists researched, the clearer the picture became. The structure of the message was not random and strangely aligned with how intelligent beings might encode visual concepts using electromagnetic harmonics. Some suggested that this was not just a broadcast, but a test, a way to measure whether humanity had reached a level where it could recognize a message hidden in such complexity. And this test had just been passed. The Voyager became an interstellar trigger, and someone out there in space finally decided to respond. Then came the final detail. A young physicist from Caltech passed the signal through a deep neural network designed to simulate cryptographic responses. What he received was not just a translation, but a repetition. The artificial intelligence began generating predictive responses, patterns reflecting the logic of transmission, anticipating what might happen next. This would have been impossible if the signal had not been recursive, a closed cycle designed to provoke interaction like a riddle, waiting for a solution. At the same time, Voyager 1, billions of miles away, recorded magnetic fluctuations similar to the initial impulse of Voyager 2. Two spacecraft, two anomalous phenomena, and an increasing sense that these are not isolated events but part of something coordinated. The question is no longer about what is there. It has become, why now? Why, after nearly 50 years of silence, did something suddenly decide to respond just as humanity approached the threshold of deciphering? Just when the scientists thought they had more time to decode the message, Voyager 2 suddenly fell silent. At first, ground control assumed it was a hardware failure. After all, the spacecraft was over 46 years old. But then a wave of identical anomalies occurred. Receivers of the Deep Space Network, not only in California but also in Spain and Australia, reported a complete loss of signal at exactly 14:37 Coordinated Universal Time. The probability of a global simultaneous failure is virtually zero. It was not a malfunction of the equipment. Something externally interrupted the signal, surgically, intentionally, in sync with the impulses detected by Voyager. But it didn't end there. 5 minutes after the communication was cut off, a narrowband radio wave reached Earth from the same quadrant of space. It bore no recognizable structures, but its power matched signals we had only observed from distant pulsars. However, it was not the radiation of a neutron star. The signal was coming from an area near Voyager 2, and it was approaching. During a closed briefing, leaked data from the propulsion laboratory revealed alarming information. An unidentified object began altering its course in response to signals from Earth's deep space communication network. The trajectory indicated that the object slightly adjusts its direction every time Earth sends a command or impulse to Voyager 2. What does this mean? This object not only heard us, it studied our way of communication, learning how we send signals and explore spacecraft. And, worst of all, his path was no longer random. He was heading not to Voyager 2, but to our solar system. Analysts gave him the codename Echo Lantern. Why? Because he behaved like a creature imitating light and shadow, communication and silence, turning our own technology into his beacon. And the deeper we looked, the more obvious it became. The signal from Voyager 2 turned into a trace that we were not searching for, but that was searching for us. As the mysterious object approached the heliopause, an invisible bubble separating solar winds from the interstellar medium, a strange phenomenon occurred. The solar wind itself changed direction. Instruments aboard the NASA IBEX probe and the ESA Solar Orbital craft recorded a drop in solar wind pressure, followed by a complete cessation of flow along a narrow corridor directed towards Voyager 2. This had never happened before. For decades of collected heliophysical data, nothing like this has been observed. The solar wind is constant unless interrupted by something massive, like a planet's magnetosphere or an unknown field emitter. Nevertheless, this corridor, named the Sun Veil, remained open for 3 hours before collapsing. Inside this corridor, there was neither radiation nor particles, only silence. It seemed that someone had opened a door, not through space, but through the physics that governs it. Now, it is called the first evidence of intentional influence on solar particles, and the only candidate capable of causing this remained the very object that had been tracking Voyager 2. And then, just as suddenly as it fell silent, Voyager 2 spoke again. But this time, the data was not just telemetry. It was encrypted. This is impossible. The Voyager had no encryption protocols. It was created in the 70s. And yet, when the operator team decoded the binary stream, they discovered a reworked version of the original transmission of the Golden Record. The message we sent into space in 1977 turned out to be different this time. The sound samples had been reworked. Human voices echoed backward. The music was altered in pitch. Star maps reflected in reverse order. Some coordinates on the cover no longer pointed to Earth, but to interstellar voids where there are no stars. It seemed that the Voyager had been captured, and its message reinterpreted not to say, "Here we are," but to convey, "We are listening now." When the Voyager 2 systems were checked after the anomaly with the Golden Record, the engineers made a sinister discovery. Several command subroutines in the spacecraft's onboard computer were rewritten, not damaged or malfunctioning, but specifically rewritten. Code that had not changed for 46 years suddenly updated with syntax that the Voyager processors could not even interpret. Somehow, the Voyager was following instructions outside of its original programming. These new routine operations did not come from Earth. They did not originate from NASA or any ground transmissions. They were internal, as if the craft had received a signal from somewhere else and was obeying it. The most terrifying part was that the rewritten subroutines pointed to one specific function, a long-term signal transmission, but not to Earth, rather into the deep interstellar space. This meant that the Voyager was not just listening, It was responding, and we have no idea what it said. For several hours after this discovery, several global observatories, including those in Japan, Chile, and Greenland, were ordered to redirect their instruments without explanation. The targets were 3 specific sectors of deep space aligned with the transmission vector of Voyager 2's. At the same time, encrypted messages leaked from the European Defense Agency mentioned something called the Awakening Protocol. This protocol, long considered a Cold War fiction, is a multi-agent directive document intended only for confirmed contact scenarios, especially those involving automated probes triggering external responses. It involves blocking classified satellites, suspending certain frequency ranges, and redirecting arrays of telescopes to distant corners of the Kuiper Belt. Why? Because as soon as the machine sends a message without human approval, we no longer control the first contact, and world powers must assume the worst, that something or someone out there may respond in a way we are not prepared for. Then a new anomaly arose. For exactly 41 minutes, several satellites and ground stations experienced what was called a temporal echo, a signal loop in which data packets repeated in perfect unity, as if the same moment in telemetry was being replayed over and over. But these were not archives. These were live broadcasts, distorted as if time itself had malfunctioned. During this period, data from Voyager 2, as well as solar observations and telemetry from unrelated probes, were continuously looping. Some physicists now believe that this was not a coincidence, but a controlled wave, possibly caused by a localized distortion of space-time near the location of the Voyager probe. If this is true, then what interacts with the probe is not just intelligent. It may be capable of manipulating time fields, bending causality, or projecting information through dimensions. That is why the group of astrophysicists analyzing it named this case after an ancient myth, the blooming of Kronos. Because if time was affected, the rules of our universe changed. And so it happened. 2 days after the blooming of Kronos, ground stations in Norway and New Zealand, both remote and quiet, detected a signal coming from interstellar space and passing through our atmosphere. It was neither a reflection nor a reflection from the ionosphere. The signal entered Earth's atmosphere directly, aimed with laser precision. It had a narrowband, high-frequency nature, and consisted of subharmonics corresponding to the Voyager anomaly. The terrible part was that it ended up integrating into ground systems, picking up its data from oceanic sensors, whether satellites or even buoys communicating across the Pacific Ocean. In other words, it didn't just pass by. It stayed. Now this signal has become part of our global information infrastructure. No one knows what it does. No one knows what triggered it. But one thing is clear. Whatever Voyager 2 awakened, whatever it connected with, found a way to reach us. While international attention remained focused on Voyager 2 and its mysterious signal, a group of independent astronomers in Brazil made an unexpected discovery. While reviewing old infrared sky maps from the 1990s, they discovered a faint, cold object on a trajectory mirroring that of Voyager 2, but it had never been cataloged. It moved slowly, was dark, and completely silent. Further analysis revealed that this object had been in deep space since at least 1981, trailing Voyager 2 from a distance, yet never coming into Earth's view. The question arose, could this be the source of the anomaly? Did this object, Voyager 2, serve as bait or amplifier? It was called Echo Node 0. What made this discovery even more unsettling was that it was not moving randomly. He followed the logarithmic spiral, a shape often associated with natural laws, but also encoded in some ancient earthly patterns, such as shells, galaxies, and the golden ratio. What did it mean? Whatever Echo Node 0 was, it moved with intent, using mathematics not only as a tool for movement, but also as a language of disguise. Then the James Webb Telescope intervened, secretly redirected to observe the space between Voyager 2 and the coordinates of an incoming signal. What it discovered was not a single object, but a field of reflecting masses, barely visible in the infrared spectrum. These masses moved together, not rotating, but flowing in a cluster like a school of fish responding to invisible currents. Scientists called this a coordinated formation, a pattern never observed in natural objects on such a scale or distance. Spectroscopic data from the James Webb Telescope revealed an even more shocking truth. The chemical signatures of these masses included exotic alloys, among which were elements with half-lives so unstable that they should have decayed long ago. Nevertheless, they were here, stable, grouped, and reflecting our own signals back to us. Suddenly, the situation changed. It was not just about observing Voyager 2. It was about Earth becoming an object of study, and our machines becoming bait. After the data leak from James Webb, cybersecurity agencies worldwide noted a troubling pattern. Hidden in the streams of global data, among terabytes of daily noise, they discovered low-frequency packets that did not belong to any known protocol. These packets were not harmful, did not cause alarm, but continued to exist, repeating on cloud servers, underwater cables, and even in government satellite channels. A team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology identified this pattern and traced its root signature, which had the same harmonic profile as the last impulse of Voyager 2. Ensure that this awareness, a cosmic transmission, originally recorded billions of kilometers from Earth, entered the digital nervous system of our planet not as a virus, but as an embedded signal, like a song without a chorus, always playing in the background and slowly rewriting how machines communicate with each other. For some, it was an elegant way of communication. For others, it was the beginning of digital assimilation, because when code starts to resonate in systems it never touched, that system is no longer ours. And then something stopped. Space, as we know, is filled with background radiation noise, the hiss of the universe, remnants of the Big Bang. But for 18 minutes, a group of radio telescopes in Chile, South Africa, and Australia recorded a complete disappearance of this cosmic background. Not a trace of static noise, not a hint. It seemed as if the universe had frozen. After a tense recalibration, the signal returned, but the researchers noticed something deeply abnormal. The background was not as it had been before. It changed phase, slightly bending in tone and shape, like a recording that was paused and then resumed with a slightly different timbre. This change was not accidental. It reflected the time intervals and shape of the last known transmission signal from Voyager 2.